This episode is a motorcycle review. Woohoo!
Alright everybody, this is my 750 mile 1 month of ownership review of my Honda Rebel 500, and the audio on this GoPro clip was terrible, so I'm just voiceovering this whole thing. But I'm showing you guys I got a jacket, CE rated, some CE rated gloves, Snell and ECE DOT Snell 2020 LS2 helmet, and then showing you guys the odometer on the bike. I bought the bike with right at 10,000 miles, and it has 10,749 at the start of this video. So let's put some gloves on and go for a ride. I actually had shot a 500 mile review of this bike, and I shot that video like 3 times, but the audio was terrible. I tried AirPods, I bought a Purple Panda mic that Yami Noob suggested in his moto vlogging video, and I still couldn't get good sound quality out of it. Side note, the Purple Panda packaging, doesn't it look like an adult sex toy? Maybe it's just me. Anyways, here we are, 750 mile review, which is going to consist of GoPro video. I've turned the volume down on it, so hopefully you can still hear a little bit, and then voiceover. And I hope this works. Let me know what you guys think about it. So we're rolling down the driveway, and I wish I had caught this on camera, but I was too busy looking for someone hauling ass around the curve there. But I actually caught neutral instead of first at the end of the driveway, and that happens sometimes on this bike. It's one of my negatives of it. For some reason, I will shift from second down into what I think is first, but actually catch neutral. But then when I do really want neutral, like when I come to a stop at the end of my ride, I can never find it. So I always kill the bike in gear and then put it in neutral so it's ready to crank back up. I pretty much never put the bike in neutral when I'm riding it. I just put it in first and hold the clutch in at every stop. But sometimes I find myself rolling up to a stop sign where I'm only going to be there for a second, look both ways, and take off again. And I never look down at and see the green neutral indicator light. And that happened at the end of the driveway. I've gotten in the habit of just giving it one more whack down to ensure that it is indeed in first gear. And I hate to start the video off on a negative, but it did happen at the end of the driveway. Anyways, here's a positive. This bike is super fun to ride on all of our twisty country back roads. I know I'm not doing hairpin after hairpin like everybody on the tail of the dragon up in the mountains in North Carolina. And I know I'm not in MotoGP, but this bike is still really fun to ride on secondary and tertiary roads around here. We get some pretty windy stuff, and you can lean this bike over and play with it and have fun with it. It's also pretty nimble, which is good because, as you will see later in this video, South Carolina, at least the rural part that I live in, has some really piss poor roads, and the DOT does a terrible job of taking care of them. But at least on this bike, you can dodge the potholes that are big enough I could lose my 4-year-old in them. Not that I want to. So we're pulling up to a stop sign here, and we're going to be turning out onto a state highway where the speed limit's 55, which means everyone and their mom is going 65, and if you're not going at least 60, they're going to pass you or like Dale Earnhardt you and yeet you off into a cotton field because you're going too slow. Anyways, I accelerate in first gear, shift into second, and then stand on it. This gives you an idea of the power this motorcycle has. So as you can see, it will get out of its own way, but you are not winning any drag races. And full disclosure here, I short shifted second, and I normally, if I'm really getting on it, I hug that tank a lot harder and try and get below the wind and as aerodynamic as possible. I know that sounds really bench racery, but it does make a difference on this motorcycle. And I left the audio in this as loud as I could, just so that y'all could get a good sense of the amount of wind noise that this bike has. Which brings me to my next point about it, which is it's not a cruiser. This is a naked bike. I know Honda markets it and sells it as a cruiser and styles it like one, but this is a naked bike through and through. It has mid pegs on it instead of forward controls, and the handlebars, while they do have some rise and back sweep, meaning they come up and back towards you, it's not nearly as significant as it would be on something like a Harley. And I kind of knew that getting into this bike. I really didn't want a full-bore cruiser, though I do like the cruiser aesthetics. And the nakedness of this bike kind of shines through after you finally get Meemaw out of the way, who you're stuck behind, and has been going 15 miles under the speed limit, and she makes her turn with no turn signal, and you end up on a road with some curves. This bike doesn't want to just putz along at low RPM and cruise along for hours and hours and hours. You're not riding along leaning back into this big plush seat with your legs out in front of you and these handlebars that rise up and come back to lay your hands on. You sort of lean over this bike. I pretty much always ride this bike with my knees hugging the tank, and I think that's good, and the balls of my feet up on the foot pegs. It also means that I probably go down the road kind of looking like a shrimp on a bike. You might wonder why a lot of this video you can't see the sky. Well, some of that is that I just haven't really figured out how to set up the helmet camera yet, but part of it is also that I am leaning forward a good bit in a lot of this video. I often, in making this video, had to remind myself to sit up straight so that you, the viewer, could get a more full view of where I was riding and not just look at my tank and my speedometer the whole time. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing about this bike. I love the character of it. It looks like a cruiser, but it's not actually a cruiser. It's a small CC naked, and that's cool. It handles really well. I have actually found the foot pegs on this thing one time completely by accident, hauling ass through a traffic circle on my way home one evening from work. Anyways, in its nakedness, one downside to that is obviously the wind noise, which I think I showed well enough in that clip earlier where I was going 65. I normally cruise this bike at 60 or less. Under 40, the wind noise is negligible. Over 40, it's pretty significant. And I actually end up sometimes ghost shifting this bike up into a non-existent 7th gear. The exhaust on this bike is stupidly quiet. With a full face helmet on, and I normally don't wear earplugs, though I probably should and probably will start wearing them, you pretty much can't hear this bike over 45 miles an hour. The wind noise on it is so much that it drowns out the exhaust. Some of that might have to do with the fact that I am wearing a cheaper helmet. I bet if I had spent, $700 on a helmet instead of $200 on a helmet, maybe I could still hear the factory exhaust. But this exhaust is very, very quiet, and there's no gear shift indicator or tack on this 2018 model. I think 2020 models do have a gear indicator on them, though you can add one to one of these bikes, I think for like 20 or 30 bucks, get a plug and play off eBay, which I might do. So that is a downside. There's quite a bit of wind noise, and the exhaust is really quiet, which sometimes makes it hard to know what gear you're in at higher speeds. And this road here, as you can see, is absolutely destroyed. This thing looks like a fucking minefield, but it's not that unusual for here in rural South Carolina. Which brings me back to the nimble quality of this bike. It doesn't ride the greatest. Over some of these bumps where I'm not able to completely dodge them, I'm getting completely out of the saddle. I'm just standing up on the pegs and right here doing it, letting the bike float underneath me, which is something that I'm totally comfortable doing. You guys might not know this about me, but I love riding a bicycle. It's my favorite mode of transportation, actually, over cars, over my motorcycles, over anything. So with that in mind, I'm ready for that. That's in my head already, to just stand up and float the bike underneath you over these shitty roads. If you're a new rider and you're expecting to ride like a car over all of these potholes and buckles in the road and chip seal roads, you're not going to do it. This bike does not soak up the bumps as well as something bigger and heavier with more suspension might do, like an Electroglide or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't really bother me. I just kind of know, what the bike will and will not take as far as bikes, or as far as bumps rather, even after only 750 miles. And while the ride quality is not the best, I wouldn't want to be on this bike for like 200 miles straight. For my kind of riding, just kind of cruising around as a commuter, this is fine. I'm normally only on this bike for 30 or 40 minutes at a time max. And that time span, I don't hurt, it doesn't bother me. I enjoy every second on it. I would not want to cruise this motorcycle all day long at 70 miles an hour. I also would not want to ride it on the roads that we have around here for like 2 hours straight. Your mileage may vary, but for me, this is a great back and forth to work bike if you live somewhere that I do, where you're not getting on the interstate every single time, or if you are, it's only for short amounts of time. And you've got a 15, 20, 30 mile commute, and you just want to have fun on your commute. I've been working some crazy hours lately. If you've watched some of my videos from a few months ago, you'll know that I quit my job as a mechanic at the cat dealership where I had been for the better part of a decade. And me and my best friend Chris, who also used to work at the cat dealer with me, we started our own business doing diesel repair, heavy-duty diesel repair, and I've been treating this like my daily driver, which is why I've racked up 750 miles on it in 1 month. And there's been a lot of days that riding this bike back and forth to work has been like the highlight of my day. Maybe I've worked 10 or 12 hours and I'm just totally exhausted, but I get on this thing and, rip it around some curves on the way home and have a great time. And I show up back at the house in a better mood than I would have if I had just gone home in my service truck. So, anyways, we're coming back to the shop where we started and kind of wrapping this episode up. And I'll sort of do an outro with my final thoughts, but I hope you guys enjoyed watching me ride this thing around and hear what I have to think about it, having owned it now for a month and put 750 miles on it. And most of this opinions is coming from someone who doesn't have a whole lot of familiarity with motorcycles, though I've put thousands and thousands of miles on bicycles and my little moped. And I have owned a motorcycle in the past and ridden some of my buddies here and there, but this is the longest amount of time I have spent with one motorcycle continuously. And I look forward to doing some more videos about it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Okay, so that is it for the Honda Rebel 500 750 mile review. I feel like I should be standing in front of it, and even though it's like a totally beautiful day right now, and was while I was recording that earlier today, it's supposed to start raining here shortly. So I drove the service truck home from work today, and I'm going to drive it back to the shop tomorrow, and I'll probably ride the bike the rest of the week. But anyways, to sum it up, it's really fun. It's very approachable. If you're a smaller person, I kind of left this out. I'm only 5'6" and like 140 pounds. I'm a little guy. So if you're a smaller person or a woman, you'll be totally comfortable on this bike. It's got enough power. It's not really exciting in a straight line, but it makes up for it in the handling. It's got cruiser looks, but naked bike character, naked underneath, definitely all the way. And I left out fuel mileage. I've been averaging about 135 to 140 miles a tank, and I normally take 2.3 2.4 gallons, something like that, to fill it back up. So I'm right there in like the 65 mile to the gallon range. Anyways, let me know if you guys liked the motorcycle vlogs, if you want to see some more of it. I'm sorry there hasn't been a lot of car content on the channel lately. Like I said, I've been working 7 days a week pretty much for like the last 3 months straight. So doing car stuff has really taken a back seat to the business. So the motorcycle is something that I can make a little bit of content about during my commute, since it's been my commuter. I do want to try and put the blue car back together soon for you guys, and I hope that we can do some more blue car videos soon. And I've got some stuff about the brown car and the Mustang too also in the works, as well as the moped, the Honda NC50 Express. Anyways, please drop a comment below. I've actually put a ton of work and effort and time into this video. It's one of my longer ones, and it has been like probably the most labor intensive YouTube video I have actually uploaded to date. So I hope you guys liked it. Let me know. We'll see you later.